There's the snap, spot, kick away. It is up, and it is good! He got it! We're going to fly home on the wings of Jake Bate!
Welcome to week 11 of the NFL season.
Already.
I know, already. The man next to me really needs no introduction. 97.1 personality, Pro Bowl guard for the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, TJ Lang. In studio. I appreciate you taking the time, Tej.
Finally, man. Good. It only took 11 weeks to get the invite, but I appreciate it.
Here we go. Every year I have you on, and I do believe I've tried to effort this for a couple weeks on my defense. Now, you're a busy guy now. I mean, you're popular. You do a popular podcast now. You've got all this other stuff you got going on. So I'm glad you worked me into your schedule.
I just need a couple weeks' notice, possibly a month. I got to get you on schedule in a month. But no, it's good to finally be here, man. And what a fun season this has been so far.
Dude, it's crazy. And now you got the Jacksonville Jaguars coming in. And look, I know what everybody out there says. So, no Trevor Lawrence this week. That was announced on Wednesday. 2-8 football team. But when you look at them, I don't think their record indicates how close they've played teams and how they fought this year. 6 of those 8 losses were one-score games. Their last 3, Green Bay, they lost 30-27. Philly, they lost 28-23, and Minnesota, they lost 12-7 without their quarterback. So I don't think Lions fans should just expect, okay, we can just walk into this and win. You played in this league, and it really is any given Sunday, isn't it?
No, yeah, it is, especially with this team. It doesn't have the same feeling that maybe Tennessee did. I think when Tennessee came in, you're like, okay, we're rolling. As long as we do what we have to do, we're going to be fine. I think the Jacksonville team, when you look at them, they got a lot of talent, especially on that defensive side, man. You look at last week, what they did to that Minnesota offense, forcing 3 interceptions from Sam Darnold, 95 yards receiving that they allowed against Minnesota, who has had a good passing attack.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I don't think Detroit's ever limited them to 95 yards.
Exactly. So. It's insane. And they've got some talent. And then the offensive side, too, their playmakers are good. I mean, ETN is an explosive back. Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie receiver, is playing good football. Evan Ingram, the tight end. He's one of the best tight ends in the red zone, I think, out of the entire NFL. He can really make you pay if you give him one-on-one coverage. So Jacksonville hasn't figured it out yet, but when you look at that team, the lack of talent is not there. They've got some guys that are playing good football. Travon Walker, another guy that was drafted number 1 a couple years ago, taking him a little bit of time to get going now, but I think he's approaching double-digit sacks himself. So
7.5.
Yeah,
and Josh Hines Jr. Josh Hines-Allen has 5. That's a good little duo that they've got on the edge.
You can't take this team for granted. I think this is a game you say, look, we came out of last week, obviously with the win, but there's a lot of things we need to clean up. I think this is the week where you really hone in on the fundamentals, the discipline, taking care of the football again. I know not all those interceptions were Jared Goff's fault, but you see when you play that type of way, man, it can get dangerous and it can slip away in a second. I think this week you go into it and say, let's just get back to who we are, right? And make sure if we're going to lose a game, it's because the other team is just executing at a high level. We don't want to beat ourselves, and the Lions haven't done that so far this year. You're going to have to continue to do that this week against Jacksonville.
All right, let's get right into the 3 keys, and I think one is going to be fun. I think for both of us to watch, and we're looking forward to it. Is this defense turning Za'Darius Smith loose? And how much fun? How much are you looking forward to what he can bring to this Lions offense? Now, look, last week I thought they were much better rushing the passer. They had 4 sacks, all from their defensive line, which is not always been the case. Aaron Glenn has had to dial up the blitz and the pressure since Aiden Hutchinson was gone. I think that was a good sign last week. Alim McNeill with 25 hurries on the season. He's getting that pressure inside, and now when you add a guy like Za'Darius to the outside, and you can have that inside-outside rush presence, what does that mean for this defense?
He's a threat, man. He's a threat every single play. He's the guy that opposing offenses have to circle, right? Where is he going to line up? We're going to have to adjust our protections to where he's going to be. He can play outside. He can play inside. The first thing I want to say when it came down to that trade, and I think we saw it last week, where anytime you get a new body in, whether it's, hey, we're picking up a free agent or we're going to make a trade, guys at that position, you get a little more motivation because obviously somebody's going to be getting less playing time with a new person coming in.
That's a good point.
I think we saw that last week. I think James Houston had his best game, had some really nice rushes there late in that game. He had one against Laramie Tunsil, who's been an all-pro left tackle for a long time that I don't even think Tunsil got his hands on him. So it was like, okay, you see the talent is still there. Maybe the motivation of knowing that, hey, we got Za'Darius Smith coming in. One of us probably going to be, you know, we might not have a spot unless we start producing. I think that picks up the level of play from everybody else. And we saw it last week with Josh Pascal, and I know Coach was very complimentary of the game that he played against Houston as well. But Za'Darius Smith is a threat, you know what I mean? And he's not just a third down, hey, we need, you know, last year when they went out and got Bruce Irvin, you know that was going to be give us 12 snaps, give us 15 snaps. If you can get a couple pressures, great. You know, that's what you're here for. Za'Darius Smith is here to play 95% of the snaps against the run, rush the passer, be a versatile tool that we can move you around on third down and find a mismatch. He's been a really good interior rusher in those situations throughout his career. I played against him when he was in Baltimore. I was
just going to ask you, when he was in Baltimore.
I was glad he was in the AFC because I had a couple rushes against him. It was like, I don't know what this guy is. This guy's a freak. He's an animal. And the other thing he brings too is the experience. You know what I mean? Like even last week, on the broadcast, we're watching him talk to all the young guys and give them tips. And then after the game, he said, you know, I'm just giving them, you know, just tips on, guys, look at the stances of the offensive linemen. Listen to the calls. A lot of times you can hear the centers and the guards, they're telling each other which way they're going to slide. So you have to know that, and it can give you a better picture of what the offense is trying to do. If you hear a slide, maybe you're thinking, okay, maybe I don't want to go inside this time because there's going to be a guard there, right? And there are little nuances like that you pick up from veteran players. And I think he's going to help not only those edge rushers, but help the interior guys as well. And Alim McNeill has been, I mean, unbelievable this year. You know, when you're talking about interior guys and the pressures they have, and he's right up there with Dexter Lawrence and Chris Jones and Quinnen Williams, who have been all-pro guys.
You see why
that's crazy.
You see why they signed him long-term.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see what Za'Darius is going to bring. And just watching when he snuck up on that Sunday Night Football set after the game last week.
Yeah.
And he didn't even play, but, man, you could tell, like, this just chomping at the bit and getting a chance to play for Aaron Glenn and join the rest of this defense that is playing really good football right now. I'm thrilled. I literally can't wait to see what kind of game he's going to have on Sunday.
I think he's such a perfect fit. 6'4", 270.
Yeah,
like you mentioned, he can play
player.
outside, inside. A lot of the things that Hutch can do. You know, is he Hutch? No. But he's close, you know, just in terms of the versatility, what he brings this defense, and how he fits into it.
And he's got a lot of moves, too. You know what I mean? Like, I think when you were looking at the way they were trying to build this defensive line, you obviously have Hutch on one side. And then they brought in Marcus Davenport, who, in my mind, is similar to a Za'Darius Smith type. Got a ton of power, can press the pocket, and that's really how they want to defend a lot of quarterbacks right now. So, like you said, I don't think Za'Darius is going to take over that Hutch role. I think maybe more of that Marcus Davenport role, that he's going to be stout against the run. You know he's not going to give up an edge. You know he's not going to allow people to press to that side, and then he's going to press the pocket in pass rushing situations. But he's also not a one-trick pony that's just going to bull rush. He's got some sneaky quickness for being an old guy too, man, for being a veteran player. He's got some hand works. He's got some spin moves that you look at and you're just like, man, like that's what's so hard to just adjust to and prepare for, is as soon as you stop his power, boom, he hits you with something else. And it's those type of plays that, man, all it takes is one or two a game that can be game changers.
And one thing you can't measure, too, is just the revitalization that a trade like that can do for a player. You're in a bad situation in Cleveland, 2 wins, it's not going the way you want. Now, boom, all of a sudden, you drive up a couple hours north and you're on an 8-1 football team talking about the Super Bowl. There's something that can be that can provide a boost and some energy for sure.
No doubt. And he has played in this division before. I think he knows what Dan Campbell and this team is about. And it's about football. You know what I mean? And just doing what you got to do. Take care of your own business. We're not going to, we don't have a lot of drama around this group right now. We're just going to let you come in, be yourself, help us out, and just go out there and play ball, man. And Za'Darius Smith looks like that type of person to me.
All right, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about offensive line play with you sitting in here.
Oh, man, so I think how much time we got?
We've got all the time that you need. I know you got to get your kids from school. That's on your duty today, but I'm going to keep you as long as I can here when we get to talk about the offensive line. And look, that's been the key for Detroit all year. It's been the key for their offense. I thought last week a little shaky in some spots, some uncharacteristic stuff we've seen from some players. They didn't record. No, Houston didn't record any sacks. Had 2 quarterback hits, but I think Jared did a good job getting the ball away a couple times, throwing it away. So not to take those sacks. I think that's going to be huge this week because you already talked about Travon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. They've combined for 12 and a half sacks. I think they both have 15 and a half and 15 sacks over their last 20 games. So this is a unit that can get after the passer. They got after Sam Darnold last week, and how important will Detroit get back to playing kind of what we've been used to up front against this Jaguars team?
Yeah, well, if there's one group primed for a comeback and a bounce back, it's got to be. And then look, I know Jared certainly wasn't thrilled with his individual performance coming off the field. And like we already mentioned, a lot of those weren't on him. The interceptions, a couple tip balls, couple, just on the wrong page, good throws. Maybe one of those, the pass to Jameson, I think he wants back. But other than that, I think, he did play. Coach said, he played pretty clean when you watch the film. But that offensive line, I know they're probably feeling, okay, not our best outing. That's not up to our standard when it comes to the run game. When it came to some of the pass protections that got a little bit slippery in there and forced Jared to throw the ball a little faster. I know that group is just chomping at the bit to get back to Sunday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they don't – when you hold yourself to such a high standard and you've proven that throughout, not only a couple games but really a couple years, you come in and watch that film and it stings. You know what I mean? You feel good that you won the game, but you're like, man, we got to get back out there and get our mojo back a little bit. And I think that they're going to do that. And big, part of that is Penei Sewell, obviously. Yeah. Penei Sewell, man, we saw last week, did get beat a couple times on some pass rushes. I think the second interception, he just had a fundamental miscue, just forgot to bring his hands and, ended up quarterback hit. Daniil Hunter had another nice rush on him. But, man, he has been – you watch that fourth quarter. You watch late in that game, and they're saying, you know what, we're not getting a lot of juice running the ball up the middle right now. Let's get out to the edges, right? Let's get our big guys moving a little bit. And how many of those plays do we see Big Penei Sewell out leading ahead, man? And just, you know what, he is so versatile to say, okay, if we're – the Lions you can't go into a game saying, oh, they're just a zone team, right? Because then they're going to run the power at you. Then they're going to run the jet sweeps. Then they're going to run the screens and get the big guys out on the edge. His versatility, I think, is really what makes this thing go. And when you have to adjust on the fly, like I think Ben Johnson had to do last week against Houston when that run game just taking a while to get going, okay, we got to try some new things. And I think not only with Penei, really the rest of that offensive line is they're not just good at zone. They're not just good at power. They're not just athletes. They're not just big mauling type dude. Like, they can do it all. You know what I mean? And that is offensive coordinator's dream, I think, in my opinion, especially with the two running backs that you have behind them. So it's going to be a challenge for those guys, no doubt, especially on the edge. Again, we'll monitor, I think, Taylor's status throughout the week. Yeah. I know Coach said, hey, that's feeling pretty good about him. But, we'll see how the rest of the week goes. But if they can get him back, I think that would be huge. And I think that group, just overall, man, like Za'Darius Smith, a guy that I can't wait to watch. I think that offensive line's like, I can't wait to watch them. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder come Sunday.
How fun would it have been for you to play with a guy like Penei?
I mean, I played with some good right tackles. I played with Brian Bulaga, who was a good right tackle. Yeah. I played with, Ricky Wagner was a good tackle when we both came here to Detroit. But Penei's just on a different level, man. Like, he makes it so easy for you. I think you trust the guys. It's so difficult sometimes to get some fits on some double teams, and he's a guy that as long as you just get a hand on the defensive tackle, like, he's just going to do the rest and just completely wipe him out of the picture. So you kind of like, man, it's making me look better a little bit. The stunts, the pass protection, being on the same page. Hey, I got to trust that you're going to be in the position, when we get a TE, I got to make sure I can release my guy and know that you're going to be there. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes if it takes you a little bit longer because I don't know if he's there, that's when you start to get beat. It would have been, I know all those guards that get to play with him are just smiling ear to ear because it does make it so much fun when you have such a talented player and such a young player and such a guy that's like full of energy all the time. It probably gets annoying at times later in the season. Like, your body's a little beat up and he's just like, let's go. You're like, come on, chill out, man. But like, it revitalizes you, I think, a little bit, and that type of energy that he brings and that passion and that emotion that he plays with, it's contagious to the rest of the group. And that's the one thing about the offensive line is you never want to be the weak link. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one thing I'm looking at the big dog. I want to be the big dog, and it brings up everybody else's level of competitive play as well, what he's doing. So He's been awesome, man. And I know I can't even say he's underrated anymore because he is on the map when it comes to everybody talking about the best right tackles in the league.
And he's 24 years old.
I mean, it's insane how young he is.
That's the crazy thing is how young he is and how
pup.
many years he's going to be doing this
at
this level.
Man.
And that play with the swing pass to Jameer, getting him out in space, that's when I love watching Penei the most.
Yeah.
You obviously love what he does in the trenches and the power that he plays with, but the athleticism that he has when he gets out in space and can, run with
no doubt.
And get on the edge with corners and safeties and linebackers and block those guys and run with them.
And corners and DBs, they can't cut block you anymore like they used to. A lot of DBs just go at your knees. You can't do that anymore. And the funny part about that clip in particular is, when Jameer gets the ball, Penei's about 5 yards in front of him. And throughout the duration of that play, Penei Sewell's like 5 yards in front of him the entire time. So he's just galloping down the field. A lot of times you'll see the running back just get excited.
Slow down, put his hand out,
just
wait
go right by him.
Jameer's just...
let's go. I mean, he's literally like 5 yards in front of him the entire time. The Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Penei, you got Zeitler, those guys flying out there kicking out. Even the play early in the game, the little shovel pass to Amon-Ra coming back on the opposite side, you got Penei, pulling back to the other side. I think that when you're Ben Johnson, man, it just gives you so many options, and it allows you to really use all those creative juices in your mind of how can we really throw something new? What wrinkles can I throw at him? When you have a guy like that, I mean, the possibilities are endless, right? We saw already this year they're trying to throw a hook and ladder to the guy. I mean, so it's like I can't imagine what kind of fun Ben has on Mondays and Tuesdays when he's coming up with the week's game plan.
You can scheme for a right tackle. There's not many teams that can do that
right.
that want to scheme for a right tackle.
Yeah,
all right, third key to me on Sunday is the secondary continuing to play the way they did. I think if this thing ends up being close or, if it's not going Detroit's way, I think it's big plays in the passing game by Jacksonville. That's probably the culprit outside of turnovers. I think that's the one thing that they've been really good at. They're third in the AFC in 20-plus yard, plays, receptions. We talked about Thomas earlier. He leads all rookies with 607 receiving yards. He's got 5 touchdowns. So that's kind of they've got some big play element to their offense. But TJ, this is a Lions secondary that, in my opinion, is the most vastly improved unit from any unit last year. And the way that they're playing right now, it's playoff, it's Super Bowl caliber winning football, isn't it?
100% it is. And those guys they're scrappy too, man. And they play together. You know what I mean? Like you have to be – it's much like an offensive line. You got 5 guys out there for the most part when you're playing nickel defense, and you got 10 eyes out there that have to see things the exact same way. If one guy is thinking something else and, oh, man, I thought that's where you let up the big plays. That's where you let up, guys running free down the middle of the field. You have to be on the same page, and for the most part this season, they've done that. And the takeaways that they've been getting. I know the corners, it was about 10 weeks, man. Those guys were getting bitter and jealous watching Kirby and watching Brian get all the takeaways. And then finally, how fitting last week we get to see Carlton Davis finally get his hands on a couple balls. And the play, I know, the first play of the second half, man, I think ended up in another interception. You didn't get points off that.
It flipped the field, though.
And it flipped the field, and you felt like that was a momentum changer. If you go down 3 scores going into that second half, much like what we saw Detroit do in Green Bay a couple weeks ago, it's really hard to dig yourself out of that hole, especially against a good team. So that was a big play just to stop the momentum from Houston a little bit, I think. And then later in the game, I mean, that play he made on that deep interception to Tank Dell, the closing speed.
Yes.
And look, I know C.J. Stroud's probably watching that, kicking himself, going, "Oh my goodness!" Like he just kind of left it in there. But you know what? That's Carlton Davis not giving up on the play, and that's Carlton Davis going and chasing that thing down and saying, "You know what? I got a chance to go make a play," and that's a takeaway. That's taking points off the board too. Terry and Arnold, man, I know he got called for a penalty last week, and I can't imagine how hard it is, to be a defensive back one-on-one, and everybody, all of us are sitting there, man, just turn your head, you know what I mean? Like it's so,
especially with the rules,
especially with the rule, and it's so incredibly hard to judge that up, to read the body language, and because how many times do we see a guy turn his head and the ball goes right over his head, and it's like, man, if you would have just put your arm up, you know what I mean? So it's like it's incredibly difficult, but I love the feistiness that these guys play with. And I think even the support that these guys give in the run game is admirable too. I mean, Carlton Davis made some big tackles last week. Terrion Arnold has kind of proven that he's not afraid to get dirty and get his nose in there. We know what Brian Branch is going to bring to you.
Prerequisite to play in this defense.
You
better come up and hit.
You can't be afraid to go take on a block from a tackle or a couple tight ends. We saw Brian Branch make a couple of those plays last week. But you're right, man. They're going to have to continue to play at that high level. I think hopefully the rush will continue to help them, adding Za'Darius Smith, not giving those quarterbacks as much time as they've had the last couple weeks. And maybe it allow Aaron Glenn to, stop pressuring maybe as much. I think he's had to kind of be exotic over the past couple weeks, throw some blitzes that we haven't seen before, and maybe we're going to try to confuse teams. I don't think that's the way he wants to play. He wants to rush for, and he wants to let his guys play tough man-on-man coverage, let his safeties kind of wander the field. So I think with the addition of Za'Darius Smith, how that ties into the way the secondary wants to play, that could help out as well. And I know last week, don't know if he's going to play this week, but a guy that finished last season on a high note that we haven't seen yet, who I think is starting to practice now, Ife Melifonwu.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to see when he finally does get a chance to hit that field again, how Aaron Glenn's going to use him, because we all remember the big plays that he was able to throw in that secondary as well last year. We'll see when his clock is finally started, but I know Aaron Glenn's got to be smiling ear to ear, man. When
can you imagine
he's
some
got
of
a
the
full
three
complement of those
safety
guys?
and some of the dime packages they can use, and some of that stuff.
It's going to be hard.
To your point about Terrion too, I'd be more concerned if I was watching a guy that was 3 steps behind a receiver, trailing. He's right there. I think that stuff will come. Just the more he plays, the more comfortable he gets.
No doubt.
In terms of turning his head, making plays on the ball, stuff like that. Yeah. He's right there. I haven't seen him beat this year, and that's the encouraging thing for me. And when you talk about the secondary as a whole, they've put a lot on the secondary.
No doubt.
Since Aiden has, gone down. To your point about Za'Darius, that's a pass defense is a marriage of rush and cover, and they've relied a lot on the cover part of it. It'll be fun to see it get back to what it was those first 4 weeks when they were really playing good, dominant football defensively. Yep. Last point, the safeties. Joseph and Branch, are they the best safety duo in football? And when you have 2 interchangeable pieces like that, Tej, when you're an offense that you're scheming it, how difficult is that to play against 2 guys that are really interchangeable at that position and both make plays equally well?
Yeah, no, they have to be right now. I think the top duo in the league, and just everything that they do. I know it's easy to look at the 10 interceptions that they have between each other and say, oh, man, based off the stats, but you watch the film and what those guys do and really how easy they make the job of everybody else on that defense. And you never really know which one. I think Aaron Glenn does a nice job of kind of disguising which guy is going to be the deep safety, which guy is going to be the box player. Normally when you play defense, you're looking, the strong number 3, he's their deep safety. Hey, if this guy gets into the box, he's their pressure guy, right? I think he does such a good job of mixing that up where you can't really look and say, oh, Brian Branch is the pressure guy, because a couple plays later, you get Kirby screaming off the edge. You get Kirby coming down in the box and you don't have him accounted for, and he's a playmaker. He's able to make tackles. And so I think that makes it difficult on offenses because you're not really able to key in on one guy. And I know it's got to be difficult for other quarterbacks, especially when you have the speed and the versatility of those guys playing underneath, playing center field. You get one snap and they're showing you this and they do something completely different. That's all part of, just I think the cat and mouse game that goes into it. But like you mentioned, and like, we talked about, Aaron Glenn talks about, I think one of the most impressive parts of the secondary, really the defense, has been the tackling ability this year. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of just poor tackling performances and a lot of yards after the catch or yards after the carry. Even last week, Joe Mixon was number 1 in the league when it came to yak per game. I think he was averaging 100 yards and 76 per game was after contact. And you look at the job they did on him last week, swarming to the football, getting him down, holding him up, waiting for your buddies to come in there, take a couple punches, try to get some take. Like the way that they've been tackling this year has been, I think, one of the most improved fundamental parts of what they're doing defense. And I think that those safeties you talk about are a big part of that. You get guys one-on-one, a lot of times you're thinking, oh, no, man, one move. How many times last week? We saw Carlton Davis a couple times where he's out on the edge one-on-one. It's like you versus me, who's going to win? And Carlton Davis came out on top on, I think, pretty much all those scenarios. And I think that's really what's been impressive with those safeties as well, man, is they are really good. They're physical. They hit you. We saw that in the Green Bay game. They hit you hard. And, man, they tackle really, really well, too.
And now you're going to add, like you said, Ifeatu Melifonwu to that mix. Emmanuel Mosley could be working his way back
another
to a guy.
Yeah.
So it's a deep unit. It's a talented unit. They've relied a lot on him, and they can do a lot with him.
And Amik Robertson's a guy, man. He's kind of
played well in there too.
He's kind of been quiet, as far as
talk
maybe
about tackling.
My goodness, man, he is scrappy. You know what I mean? He is scrappy in the coverage that he brings to you too in the slot. He's sticky. You know what I mean? And that helps you out when you're trying to figure the pass rush out a little bit, right? Hey, just give us a little bit more time, or let's bring a little bit more pressure, right? Let us figure out what we want to do. As long as you have the guys that are sticky in the back end, you're always going to give your defensive line a better chance to get to the backfield, make some plays. And I think he's another guy that's probably been an unsung hero so far. I know the safeties, Carlton, Terrion, get a lot of credit, but Amik Robertson and what he's done in the slot this year has been very underrated, man, and he's been a huge part of their success.
It's been so good, the secondary. It's been
awesome. And that was the area that
the weakness last
a lot
year.
of people said. I remember, Brad post-season conference last year, and, he had a lot of receipts. I think a lot of people were saying, man, okay, let's go fix that secondary now. And he did. And he did. And those guys are playing well together. You know what I mean? That's what you have to have in a secondary. You can't just throw a bunch of talented players, and if they have no chemistry, you're not going to see the results. But the way that those guys have come together this season and play together and play for each other, man, it's been super impressive.
You've been impressive. I'm glad I had you on week 11.
It,
I liked it.
Thank
This
you,
has
buddy.
been a good three keys. One of the better ones we've had. I always love having you on, and I love that we're home.
Me too, man.
I love that we're
the next
home.
five.
4
We
of the
have to
next
travel.
5 starting this
man.
week, and that's been a rough stretch. But look, they've handled it really well. They're 8-1, looking to go 9-1, keep it rolling in the NFC. In the NFC North, he is TJ Lang, one of the best in the business. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the 20 in the Huddle podcast, and I'm very happy to welcome in starting right tackle Penei Sewell. Penei, thanks for joining. I think you've been on before, so you're a friend of the podcast. I appreciate it. Well, let's start with this. You and Isabel announced that you're going to have your third child. Congratulations, first off. And I know we were chatting before this. Girl on the way.
Correct.
What is it going to be like now? You guys are going to be outnumbered in the house.
I think just chaos. I mean, I think that's what's expected. So.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is when at training camp with you and Malachi. He's getting to that age now. He's like 2, right? Mm-hmm. Right over 2. And, you guys have the family at training camp, and Malachi gets to come and run around. And every day, it almost broke my heart sometimes that you have to, obviously go back in, do your stuff, and Malachi would just be grabbing there and a little tear running down his eyes. Is that the hardest part about having a family and being a football player, is that training camp part when you're away from them and kind of having to leave them every day?
Hands down. I mean, even right now when I have to come in to the facility, it's definitely tough. He's always like that, which makes it even harder. So, but I just think about, I guess, the future, so, and then the things that I'm doing right now for my family, and just focusing on that. But yeah, that's my guy, man. And every day, every time I go home,
it was literally one of the funnest parts of training camp, watching you two interact.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's my guy.
Yeah, going home just every day, that's the bright spot for you.
Oh yeah, everything. I don't even try to, but everything leaves my mind once I see Malachi and Mila and my wife. So yeah, life's good.
Well, I want to go back to last week a little bit. Offensively, I think both probably as an offense overall, as an offensive line, and probably even I'd say you'd say individually, not the best performance, that not up to what you got your standard. Just how much are you looking forward to getting back out there when you guys have a performance like that as an offense? Are you even more eager to get back to it, to kind of get that taste out of your mouth a little bit?
I think a little bit, yeah. Obviously, I mean, you don't want your last performance to ever be what we did in Houston. So I think that's the best part about this game, that you have another opportunity to go out there and really show who you are and what you're about. So yeah, there's a little sense of urgency to get to the next one, but at the end of the day, you just got to take it day to day, and it's another process and just another opportunity to go out there and play.
What does it say about this offense, the second half that you guys had, that you can have a half like that, obviously below your standards, but then you can still fight come back and win, aided by the defensive performance, obviously, which was terrific. But then you guys kind of got it together, and you end up finishing that game and winning it. How gratifying was that you guys didn't play your best football, but you can still find ways to win? Is that the hallmark of a really good football team?
Yeah, and I think Campbell said it, and a couple of the players said it already, and it just starts with executing. At the end of the day, it's everyone doing their jobs and everybody trusting each other to do their job. So I think we just went back to the basics in the second half, and that's what happened.
Good test this week. Travon, Walker, Josh Hines-Allen. I think they got 12.5 sacks between them. Just what have you seen from them on film and the test that you and Taylor have on the edges this week?
Both very physical players. When you look at them, they already have the size, the height, and the arm length. So off the paper, they just already look the part. But on film, they're just really physical. They really play with their hands well, and I think that's the battle that we have to beat. We have to come out there and play physical. This is
the NFL. It's any given Sunday, right? You can't look at this team and be like, 2-8. This is an off week, right? That's just not how this league operates. Any team could be anyone on any given Sunday. And has that been kind of the mindset this week too? That they got some good players over there. They've lost 6 games by 1 score. This is a better football team than their record would indicate, and we have to play accordingly.
Yeah, it goes to every week. It doesn't even kind of matter about the Jaguars. It's every week there's always a challenge, and that's the beauty part of this league and why I guess we play the game. It's to go against the best and come in each and every day grateful for the opportunity to do that. So just another week with a great test.
What's it been like playing alongside Kevin?
Oh man, it's been interesting at first. And,
Why interesting?
He's just a real football guy. I'm a little different. He spends a lot of time watching film. Mm-hmm. Every time in the facility, he's always watching film. He's always doing a pass set, and I like to breathe a little bit, Okay. So in that aspect, it was interesting. But I've gotten to get to a very comfortable spot with him now, and it's we're on the same page about everything, and it's fun. I think when I first heard him laugh was we were in a film room. Somebody busted a joke, and I was like, he can laugh, So at first I thought he was just a straight football guy, but now I'm starting to feel his personality and get to know him better.
I've heard rumors of his wife's baking. Is it true? Has she baked for you guys? Have you guys had stuff in there? I heard when he was in Baltimore that was like a thing.
A thing, yeah. I think I don't remember, but I don't know. I don't think I've had one of his wife's baking. Yeah.
The week Skipper had last week, I think they were giving him some IVs on the sideline just to kind of try to keep him alive with how many reps that he played last week.
Who was this?
Skip.
Oh, yeah.
Just the effort that he had stepping in there. A guy who's a swing tackle, plays a certain amount of reps every week, and then, obviously Taylor goes down and he has to step in. Just the effort that he has. Is he a representative of what this team is all about, that guys can just step in, play, and next man up mentality?
Yeah, that's always been Skip, though. From the day I met him to today, he's always been that type of player, and everybody knows it, from the coaches, players, and even to executives, what type of player he is. And yeah, he's gonna need multiple IVs throughout the game, without a doubt, with the amount of sweat he has. That's just him.
We haven't seen the best of this offense yet, have we, Penei? We talked to Ben Johnson on Thursday. He said we've seen it in spurts, but we haven't seen 60 minutes yet. What does 60 minutes of great offense, of this offense's potential, look like?
To be honest, I really don't know, and I would want to figure it out by showing first. I think we have to go out there and feel it, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Do you get that feeling early? Can you sense early in a game, okay, this might be one of those games?
Not really. I kind of leave that up to the coaches, and in that aspect of how the game's gonna go, I just try to focus on what I can do to help the team, and dominate my space at the end of the day. So, but I guess you can feel it if you want to, but I try to tune it out and just focus on what I can do.
You're pound for pound one of the most athletic guys in this entire sport. We saw the trick play in Dallas with, kind of the getting you out in space and almost scoring there. Did you have to? Did you swat Frank on the back of the head for getting downfield?
Oh no,
that one?
Man, I just kind of let that one go, to be honest.
But is there anything now? Not to give you not to open up the playbook here, give away any secrets, but there's some other stuff in store for you, isn't there? Ben's got something up his sleeve with you, because he talks about that athleticism all the time. And how fun is it to be part of a coordinator who sees that and wants you to get involved and has some things dialed up for you like that?
It makes it fun, when I get to, I guess, get outside my position a little bit and do something that I can showcase my athletic ability. It just makes it fun. A nice change up for what I do on a day-to-day basis. And in terms of, I guess, anything else, we haven't drawn it up yet, but I'm pretty sure he has a vault ready to implement.
I know we've talked about this, and I'm convinced if you lost 50 pounds, you could probably be a Pro Bowl tight end in this league.
That's true. No, that's saying a lot, but
I see the fat and goes on Friday, which is what they call them. Yep. And I tell you what, your hands, your athleticism, I see you snagging one-handed 30-yard go routes and stuff.
I try. I just try to have fun with it.
Look at this guy. I try. Very humble is Penei Sewell. Last one for me. How much do you like blocking for David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs?
A lot. And I think at times I do take it for granted. And I think this game and going on forth that I'm going to show really how much they really mean to me. The last game I definitely took a rough start and not up to my standard. So I'm going to take it. Well, I've already taken upon myself coming in starting Wednesday when we came in that I think I need to show how much those guys mean to me, and not only those guys, to the whole offense.
Well, it looks like we, as Lions fans, are in store for something fun on Sunday. Congratulations on the contract, by the way.
You.
Much deserved. I'm glad that gives security to your family for generations. And you're one of the best in the business. We always appreciate having you on, and I look forward to your play on Sunday after that comment. Appreciate you, Penei. Thanks so much. Welcome back to the 20 in the Huddle podcast, and I'm very happy to welcome in John Oehser. He does a great job covering everything Jaguars down for Jaguars.com. He is the guy to go to when you need Jaguars information, and so he is the man for me this week with the Lions playing Jacksonville Sunday at 1 o'clock at Ford Field. And John, let's just start with obviously the big news to come out of Jacksonville on Wednesday. No Trevor Lawrence. Doug Peterson announced that Mac Jones is going to make the start on Sunday. Obviously, a big loss for Jacksonville, but what can we expect from Mac Jones now getting a second start and then having the reps this week too?
The other day, the offense has not been fantastic with Trevor or with Mac this year. But with Trevor, there were some big plays downfield. There was a 4 or 5 game stretch where they played pretty well offensively. With Mac last week, it felt like a limited offense in terms of going downfield. He was getting his feet under him a little bit, probably playing a little bit safe, trying not to make mistakes. They were in it, and then all of a sudden at the end of the game, the wheels kind of came off a little bit. There was a fumbled snap. You guys know the Vikings defense, very good, very aggressive. All of a sudden, with the game on the line, Mac had to go downfield a little more. The result, perhaps unsurprisingly, given the first start in a while, interceptions on the last 2 drives, with a chance to take the lead, 3 turnovers on the last 3 drives. So that was the storyline. It's considered now, obviously, a bounce-back game for Mac Jones. More reps. No doubt that he is going to be the starter this week. And he has played well in the past in his career after tough games. So if you're asking what the storyline around Mac Jones is this week, it's certainly, can he show the same kind of bounce back as he has at a lot of point in his career? Tough task considering the opponent.
Yeah, it's going to be rowdy in Ford Field. It's obviously a tough place to play, and this is a much improved Lions defense, really led by their secondary, and you're going to get Za'Darius Smith after Mac Jones this week for the first time, too. So certainly a tough task. But, when I look at this Jacksonville team overall, John, you obviously see 2-8, and you say, wow, they're probably not a very good football team, but 6 of those losses have been by 1 score. And particularly the last 3 weeks, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Green Bay took them right to the end. What's been the story with this team? Is it just do they have to learn how to find ways to win? But to me, from the outside looking in, they don't look like a 2-8 team. Am I wrong?
Yeah, they're probably a 5-5 team. It's easy to say, well, if they had won 6 close games, they'd be 8-2. Well, we all know in the NFL, close games are what the league is. So if you're not winning those, you're not a very good team. They compete, they play hard, they don't quit. But at the end of games, when it's time to make plays to win, they make plays to lose. It's just been what they've been. So they had the Packers on the ropes, couldn't close it. Had a chance late against the Eagles to take the lead, had the ball on the 13-yard line. Trevor Lawrence throws a pick. Sort of the same thing last week. The Lions, they're up in the second half, but you've seen plenty of these games, Tim. They're up in these games. They have a chance, but they never really feel like they get the upper hand. So it's easy to say, well, they need to find a way to win or need to learn how to win. But the reality is they're in year 3 of this. You should have learned to win a while back. So the problem is this is what they are right now. I'm not sure with 7 games to go if they're going to learn this. I'm really not sure you're going to learn it in Ford Field with that crowd. So it's, again, I'm not trying to make light of it, but right now, after 10 or 11 games, they're a team that has trouble making big plays late. It's tough to win in the NFL that way.
Yeah, it's real tough to win in the NFL that way, especially on the road. When I do look at that defense and what they did to Minnesota last week, that's got to be pretty encouraging. Obviously, with Travon, Walker, and Josh Hines-Allen, 12 sacks between them. That's good bookend edge rushers, and it's a secondary that's really aggressive. To hold Justin Jefferson and the other receiver. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jordan Addison. To hold those guys at 95 total yards, that's pretty impressive. Is that really been the strength of this team all year? Is that the secondary defensive being able to rush the passer a little bit, or not really? You're shaking your head there.
It's been a defense, frankly, that has given up huge plays with regularity. They've really struggled on 3rd and long. They got a lot of touchdowns on 3rd and long. Wow. to a historical degree almost. But credit them last week, changed up, played zone instead of man, which is what they're comfortable with, played the definition of bend but don't break. They gave up 400 yards and then had 2 interceptions in the end zone, essentially, and an interception on the 22. So they didn't create any points, but they also didn't give them up. So I don't know, frankly, if that's a sustainable way for this defense to play, but it did a very good job with it last week. Your concern is against the Lions, obviously, you have to defend 2 things. You have to defend the run, and then you have to get them off the field when they're trying to pass. So I would like to see this defense do this one more time before I consider it all of a sudden a strength. It's really struggled in the secondary this year. And guess what, for the Lions, they've also struggled with the run game on the interior. So it feels to me like the Lions match up pretty well against this team. But I think from what you've seen, Tim, the Lions match up well against a lot of teams.
Yeah, they certainly do at 8-1. Who's a player too who could possibly have an impact? Maybe a name Lions fans don't know, a young guy, a guy who Jacksonville's looking to have a good game on Sunday.
Well, for a Lions reference, Travon Walker is playing very, very well. I think the Lions might have drafted him at the Jaguars. It felt like that was possibly a thing. So he's playing exceptionally well this year. He's coming into his own. Guys you may not have heard of, I would say Parker Washington, the slot receiver, he's playing for Christian Kirk. He's shown some flashes. The big guy who's having a really good year for this team, Brian Thomas Jr., who was the number 23 overall pick until the last couple of weeks. He's shown signs of being special. This team hasn't had a number one receiver since Jimmy Smith, which is a name you probably remember from the 90s and the early 2000s. But Brian Thomas Jr., he looks special at receiver if they can get him the ball. Whether or not Mac Jones can get him the ball in the right situations didn't happen last week, so remains to be seen. But he's a guy, once he gets going, he does things above the X's and O's that it's hard to defend.
All right, last one from me, John, is how does Jacksonville come into Detroit on the road and create a big upset here? What has to happen? What has to go right? What's the key for Jacksonville coming here and escaping with an upset win?
You got me. No, and I'm not trying to be facetious. I mean, I normally with that question, I would give you a good answer. I think what I can tell you is this is by far, to me, the Jags' toughest matchup of the year. I think they have to create turnovers. They have to get interceptions. I think they have to get points off interceptions. Tim, over the years, we've both covered some teams that have struggled. When a team like this is going into a situation, the Jaguars need a break early. They need to get up. And then, frankly, they need the Lions to have a bad game because I think the Lions, the way they run, the way they control clock, I think the Jaguars can have their best game of the season, which I think they need to do to win and not win. But they need big plays, and they need a break. This is a tough matchup for the Jags.
Yeah, it certainly is. But look, the Lions are looking forward to getting back at home. That's why we play any given Sunday, right? Once you strap them up, you never know. We've been through a lot of these before and had plenty of surprises over the years. John, I appreciate you taking the time. If you need to catch up on anything Jacksonville, please go now, Jaguars.com. John does such a great job with everything there. And safe travels up, and we'll talk to you on Sunday, buddy.
Tim, always enjoy it, buddy. Thank you.